Hello, I just woke up and I'm going to tell you a bedtime story about Gio, Latif, and the Laksa. When Gio was a second year international affairs student in a university in Cebu City, he obtained funding to join the school team participating in an international Model UN competition in Sydney, Australia. At the height of the competition, Gio made plenty of new friends and became particularly close to Latif from the Malaysian team. The two first started talking when Latif asked Gio where he was from. Upon discovering that Gio was from the Philippines, Latif lit up and declared that he was a big fan of Filipino actors like Jericho Rosales and Christine Hermosa. Gio was pleasantly surprised to learn that Latif had seen every episode of the ABS-CBN telenovela Pangako Sa'yo, which is The Promise in English. The show had aired on Malaysian TV a few years back and its two stars had developed a modest following. Ashamed that he did not know much about Malaysian culture as Latif knew about the Philippine culture, Gio asked Latif what his country was like. He discovered that Latif was from a Muslim university in Kuala Lumpur. Gio asked him what he liked best about living in KL, and Latif immediately mentioned the food. Latif explained that in Kuala Lumpur, one can find Chinese, Indian, and Malay cuisines. He told Gio that this assortment of food waste was the result of the British. He told Gio that this assortment of food waste was the result of how the British reorganized Malaysian society during the colonial times. The British did little to change the way of life of the Malays, who were the original residents, but they brought in Chinese laborers to work in the rubber plantations and tin mines, and Indians to help manage the bureaucracy and serve as the initial professional core of a potential middle class. One of the ways that these ethnic groups were identified was through their food waste. So according to Latif, Malaysia eventually became famous for these cuisines, which can be found in the various hawker centers across the nation's cities and towns. These food stands are located in outdoor food parks where local and tourists taste the best of Malaysia from nasi lemak to laksa. Gio interrupted Latif and asked, "What is laksa?" He felt more ashamed at his lack of knowledge. Let me show you what it is and how it is prepared," replied Latif. The next day, Latif took Gio to a Malaysian restaurant a few blocks away from the university. Gio was surprised to discover that Malaysian food was readily available in Sydney. Having noticed this, I think that this is important. Latif explained to his Filipino friend that over the years as more and more Malaysian students moved to Sydney to study, Malaysian restaurants followed suit. Soon after, they were catering not only to these students but to Australia-born Sydneysiders as well, whose culinary tastes were becoming more and more diverse. Excuse me. Gio finally had his first taste of laksa, a rice noodle soup and a spicy coconut curry sauce. He found the flavors intense since he was not used to spicy food like most Filipinos. However, in difference to his friend, he persisted and eventually found himself enjoying the hot dish. After the meal, Gio and Latif went to a nearby cafe and ordered flat whites, an espresso drink similar to a latte which is usually served in cafes in Australia and New Zealand. Both of them knew what flat whites were since they were Australian. Australian-inspired cafes in both Kuala Lumpur and Cebu. I think that this is the picture of laksa, I don't know. The new friends promised to stay in touch after the competition and added and followed each other on Facebook and Instagram. Over the next 2 years, they exchanged emails and posts. Congratulated each other for their achievements, and commented on and liked each other's photos. Latif sent his mother's recipe to Gio, and the latter began cooking Malaysian food in his home. A few years after graduation, Gio moved to Singapore, joining many other overseas Filipino workers, commonly known as OFWs, in the city-state. The culture was new to him, but one thing was familiar. The food served in Singapore was no different from the Malaysian Singaporean colleague. The food served in Singapore was no different from the Malaysian food he had discovered through Latin. He would later learn from Singaporean colleagues that the island country was once part of the British colony of Malaya and the post-war independent Federation of Malaysia. However, Singapore separated from the Federation in August 1965 and became a nation state. Today, there may be two distinct countries in this part of the world, but Singapore and Malaysia still share the same cuisine. After he settled down in his apartment, Gio sought out and found a favorite laksa stall in Newtown Hawker Center. He would spend his weekends there with friends eating laksa and other dishes. One Saturday, while Gio was checking his Facebook feed along the very busy Orchard Road, Singapore's main commercial road, he noticed that Latif had just posted something 5 minutes earlier. It was a picture from Orchard Road. Surprised but also excited, Gio sent Latif a private message. Latif replied immediately saying that he too had moved to Singapore and was at the moment standing in front of a department store just a few blocks away from where Gio was. The two friends met up, and after a long hug and quick questions as to what each other was up to, they ducked into a cafe and renewed their international friendship by ordering a pair of flat whites. The lesson of this story is I need to fucking improve my pronunciation shit, because holy fuck, I'm cool. Anyways, let me know if you want to listen to more stories. Yeah. Subscribe, like, follow. Bye.